Imagine not being able to go home to dinner tonight because you don't have a home. In fact, you don't even have a country. That's what a refugee is, an ordinary person without a home, without a country. As a refugee, you live in a tent or a shed if you're lucky. You can see your own breath when lying on your thin mattress. You'll see children walk around in flip-flops and ripped shirts in below freezing temperatures. You have to burn whatever you can find to keep yourself warm. Otherwise, the cold will kill you. This is your everyday life. And this is the reality for an estimated 500,000 Syrian refugees in Lebanon. My name is Mahiro Sano, and for those of you who don't know me, I was almost a college dropout. I first read about the state of Syrian refugee camps my freshman year at Cedarville, and I remember feeling this burning urge to do something about it. It brought me to tears that they have to live in this nightmare every day for years and years, and my impulsive self almost made me drop out of college to start volunteering. Thankfully, a professor at the time kept me from doing this for some very valid reasons, but this issue has been on my heart ever since. So for the biggest project of my time here at the ICC, I decided to revisit this problem and do what I can to help, but this time through the lens of a designer. But before I dive into the details of the project, I'd like to invite you on a journey of a refugee family. Meet the Abadi family, a wonderful Syrian family who values relationships, their rich heritage and traditions, and pride themselves in always being there for their friends. When you look at this picture, you might think they don't really look like refugees. And you're right, many refugees come from middle class and even rich families before they have to move out of their country. Then the Syrian war hits all of a sudden, destroying their homes. Everything that is familiar to them is gone. And now they have no other choice but to live in a foreign land with a bunch of people whose only thing that they have in common with is that they are also refugees. This is the story of roughly 1.5 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon. The red dots represent the number of refugee camps in Lebanon alone. 20 to 30% of refugees in Lebanon live in camps concentrated in areas with very harsh winters, and the town of Arsal is no exception. In the town of Arsal, there are about 35,000 Syrian refugees. That's roughly half the entire population of the town. The country's financial meltdown in 2019, combined with the outbreak of COVID, have led to skyrocketing fuel prices, making the fuel for heating unobtainable for refugees. Unable to afford fuel for heaters, these refugees have to rely mainly on blankets and burning whatever they can find to keep themselves warm. This is an X-ray of a Syrian refugee. A majority of them have suffered from lung-related diseases due to toxic chemicals released from burning rubber and plastic. But on top of this problem, there is zero waste management system at the camps, which has led to a buildup of garbage that's very difficult to handle. The current solution to this issue is an unsustainable distribution system that meets the bare minimum. NGOs such as the UNHCR and others have put together $600 winterization kits that consist of small amounts of blankets, coal, wood, or diesel that add up to millions spent each year, year after year. This makes the system completely unsustainable, and this has been going on for decades. But why is the system like this? Because it's designed to be temporary. But why is it designed to be temporary? To understand this better, let's take a look at the refugee crisis from a refugee's perspective as well as the local's perspective. The refugee never chose to be a refugee in the first place and wants to go back to their home country as soon as possible. The local resident, on the other hand, is concerned about refugees taking jobs and causing damage to the environment. So neither really wants this situation to be permanent. After conducting an interview with a Syrian refugee, watching documentaries, and conducting extensive research, I realized that the key to solving this problem lies in redefining what temporary looks like and transforming it. So right now, temporary means meeting immediate needs that are unsustainable. But what if temporary meant meeting the core needs through a sustainable system? In order to reach a sustainable solution, we need to dive deeper into the core needs beyond the immediate needs. Otherwise, the solution will be hollow. So, what are the core needs that are being ignored? First is dignity. Syrian culture is an honor-shame culture, which means that they're reluctant to accept cash assistance, even in desperate situations. Pride and status is found in being helpful, hospitable, and charitable to others. And for this reason, many Syrians who are currently dependent on aid from others find the situation to be extremely undignified, especially among the men who can no longer fulfill their social role as a family provider. Syrian refugees often have no choice but to work informally without correct permits, making them vulnerable to exploitation and threat of detention. Second is community. So in Syrian culture, it's normal to visit friends and family every day for sharing stories and just doing life together. And a huge part of this is feasting. Feasting is extremely important in Muslim culture, but currently there's no feasting at the refugee camps because there's no community space or structure to gather in. As a result, many refugees feel isolated and unsafe to pursue relationships like they did back home. Last is emotional security. At the camps, the refugees feel a tremendous amount of pressure and anxiety due to the tension between the locals and the refugee community. This has also amplified because of the refugees' inability to give back to the locals and the environmental damage caused by the diesel and waste at the refugee camps. So, to summarize, in order to solve physical needs that are truly sustainable, looking at the core needs of dignity, community, and emotional security is crucial. Let's take a look at the opportunity. How might we empower the refugees through a temporary yet sustainable solution that meets their physical and core needs? So the needs are that it has to be safe and sustainable, affordable, and appropriate to their culture. From this list of needs, I came up with some design guidelines to further clarify the goals of the project. So the system and product must help them to go about their daily activities, like cooking, sleeping, etc., instead of becoming an obstacle. It must be able to keep up with the expansion of the camp, must be applicable to refugee camps that are similar, and it must use fuel that's affordable and available in the region. Once I had established those design guidelines, I realized that an off-grid energy system held the key to empowering the refugees with minimal environmental impact and be a stabilizing foundation to the community. So I began researching some energy sources and discovered that renewable energy was the best way to go, and decided to focus on sunlight and biomass, but especially biomass. Biomass is organic matter that's decomposed to create fuel called biogas. The production of biogas is simple. After dumping organic waste into the biodigester, anaerobic bacteria breaks down the waste to create methane gas, which can then be used for clean energy for cooking and heating. In the process, organic liquid fertilizer is produced as a byproduct. This can be used to grow vegetables. Among the many benefits of biogas are health, sustainability, and reliability. Biogas is a completely clean energy that only has a positive impact on both our bodies and the environment. Because it's a circular system centered around a stable energy source, it can serve as an independent energy grid and be affordable long term. This is a typical biogas unit, but the problem is it's huge and is permanent, and it takes years of planning. But then I discovered a niche group of small-scale biogas enthusiasts organized by a nonprofit called Solar Cities and joined their Facebook group. There I got to see thousands of people around the world innovating small-scale biodigesters even in their own backyards, primarily using industrial bulk containers. These biodigesters were innovated by Thomas Henry Culhane, professor at UCLA, National Geographic explorer, and co-founder of Solar Cities. The primary components that are required for these biodigesters are PVC pipes and IBCs that can be found anywhere in the world for a very low price. Here's how it works. Organic waste is dumped into the feeding pipe. Methane gas produced floats up through the gas pipe. And finally, liquid fertilizer is forced out through the outlet pipe. This is all made possible because of layers created in the IBC. So using this technology, I explored how to make the system built around it that would meet the needs of the refugees specifically. And here's some of the things that I want to highlight. Like I said, I realized that an off-grid biogas energy was an important focal point because it would create safety and be a circular, sustainable process, and also be a stabilizing foundation. This would be the center of their daily activities. I also realized through extensive research and interviews that refugee communities thrive being nestled around a central community space instead of the long rows that they're currently in. I pitched this idea to Solar Cities Facebook group and received feedback from many professionals, but among them was Janice, co-founder and vice president of Solar Cities, who gave me some extremely valuable feedback on how to make this work in underprivileged communities. But the insight that stood out to me the most was, don't overcomplicate things. The beauty of small-scale biodigesters lies in its simplicity, and by helping others learn how to build them themselves, we can create a huge opportunity for empowerment. Here's my final solution. The biodigester unit would be the central part of the unit, and surrounding that is a community space. And then surrounding the community space are the tents where the people live. This is what that would look like in real life. The central energy system would be a series of IBC biodigesters stored in a shipping container. The shipping container will be insulated through a soy spray foam, keeping the bacteria's digestive process active all year round. The way it works is simple. Refugees would dump their organic waste into the inlet pipe, which will then decompose it to create methane gas. This will be collected in biogas bags above to create clean fuel for cooking. 3 of these biodigesters would produce about 7.5 hours of cooking gas every day for about 12 people cooking for 40 people. Next, I'd like to introduce you to the community space. It will be extremely easy to build and can be completed by the refugees within several hours. All the materials are reused and are cheap and readily available in the region. But here I want to focus on one specific material. For the community space, I decided to use paper logs, which is a material innovated by Japanese architect Shigeru Ban. Paper logs are recycled cardboard tubes used to quickly and efficiently house disaster victims. For insulation, a waterproof sponge tape backed with adhesive is sandwiched between the paper tubes of the walls. The cost of materials for a 152 square meter unit is below $2,000. So let's take a look at what the community space could look like. As you enter the room, the first thing you see to your left is a gathering space to share stories and drink their favorite tea and build friendships. And for those who prefer a traditional dining style of eating on a rug, they can enjoy their meals here. Directly ahead is the kitchen. Here you will find different generations of Syrian mothers, daughters, and grandmothers cooking traditional Syrian dishes for their families. The kitchen is directly against the IBC biogas units inside the shipping container and is connected to the burners. And the food waste produced during the day is ground through the nearby sink through the incinerator that empties it into the bucket outside. On the opposite side of the kitchen is a large multi-use space that can be used for sharing meals for refugees who prefer a more Western-style dining experience. Next to the space is a partition to create a private space where women can enjoy fellowship and rest from all the cooking and all their hard work. Another component needed was light. Electricity is not readily available at refugee camps like Arsal. So instead of using traditional light bulbs, I decided to use the Leader of Light. Leader of Light is a global grassroots movement that uses inexpensive, readily available materials to provide high-quality solar lighting to people with very limited or no access to electricity. The device is simple. A transparent 2-liter bottle is filled with water plus a little bit of bleach to inhibit algae growth and fitted into a hole into a roof. The device functions like a deck prism, and the water inside the bottle reflects the sunlight. This will cost only $2 to $3 per bottle and can last up to 5 years. This is what that would look like from the outside. And this is what that would look like on the inside. So the day ends with the refugees pouring the ground food waste into the biodigesters inside the shipping container. One bucket this size will produce about 7.5 hours of cooking gas, setting them up for the next day. With the help of the Leader of Light, the community space will be a warm and safe space for refugees to gather in, even in those cold winter nights of Lebanon. The beauty of this community space lies not only in it being easy to build on site, but also in it being able to transport easily, which, as we looked at in the beginning, is crucial to a temporary refugee camp system. One whole community space fits in only one shipping container, meaning that a biodigester system at the center with 2 community kitchens attached will only be about 3 shipping containers total. This allows the units to be transported easily. All they need to do is get the IBC containers out of the shipping container and build it themselves, and also build the community kitchens within a few hours. This way, I was able to meet the needs of safety, sustainability, and affordability, while keeping the culture of the refugees in mind. By focusing on their core emotional needs to solve physical needs, I was able to design a system that will help them to go about their daily activities, like cooking and sleeping, instead of becoming an obstacle, be able to keep up with the expansion of the camp, be applicable to refugee camps that are similar, and use fuel that's affordable and available in the region. My hope is that this project will give a new perspective to the way we approach the refugee crisis and inspire change by making it possible for temporary and sustainable to coexist. Thank you so much for watching my presentation.